She always showed up early, never missed a day. The courthouse staff used to say Judge Linda Harris ran on routine as much as she did on principle. But on the morning of September 14, 2012, her courtroom bench stayed empty. A bailiff knocked on her office door, twice. No answer. The clerk made a call, straight to voicemail. A second hearing was delayed, then canceled altogether. People whispered, concerned, not alarmed. At least not yet. By noon, one of her colleagues drove by her house. The porch light was still on, curtains drawn, mail stacking near the door. She had never missed a court appearance in 18 years. Inside, they found her on the bedroom floor, face down, unmoving. She was still wearing her robe, the same one she used to slip on before making her morning coffee. But something was wrong, terribly wrong. Her body was cold, her skin bruised, her throat marked by force. And what came after that, authorities chose their words carefully. There was no sign of forced entry, no shattered glass, no struggle in the hallway, just silence, terrible final silence. Her name was Linda Harris, a mother, a judge, a woman whose life was spent standing between right and wrong. And somewhere in the evidence, a name appeared, a familiar name, Marcus Harris, her son. He was the quiet one, the one who stayed out of the news, the one she raised alone, protected fiercely. They were inseparable, people said, bound by something deeper than love, a sense of survival. So when she died, no one looked his way. Not immediately, but as investigators searched the home, behind the house, near the fence line, something caught their eye. A hoodie, black, crumpled, drenched in blood. A mother tried to protect justice. Her own blood silenced her. This is the story of Judge Linda Harris, and the son she could no longer defend. If the story already has you holding your breath, don't miss what comes next. Tap that like button to support real storytelling. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a case that matters. She wasn't just a judge. Linda Harris was the judge, the name people said with reverence. The face families saw when justice finally felt human. She was firm, fair, and unshakably composed. In Richmond's crowded courtrooms, where tempers flared and lives were often on the line, Linda never raised her voice. She didn't have to. Her presence did the work. She came from nothing, raised on the South Side. No father in the home, no shortcuts to take. But she fought her way through law school, with a newborn in her arms and a second job cleaning offices at night. That child, her only son, was Marcus. From the outside, it looked like a triumph. Linda made sure Marcus had everything she didn't: books, structure, clean uniforms, tutors. By high school, he was already being called a young prodigy, top of his class, captain of the debate team. College came with a full scholarship. Linda beamed at his graduation like she'd won the degree herself. But success doesn't always shelter you from darkness. And some things not even a mother can see. Marcus had always been polite, respectful, even soft-spoken. But those who knew him longer, who saw beyond the polished exterior, noticed something else. Anthony, a childhood friend who lived 3 blocks away, recalled moments that never sat right. He'd snap. Just like that, Anthony once told investigators, you'd be joking around, and he'd suddenly get serious. Too serious, like he wasn't playing anymore. Anthony remembers the fights. The time Marcus shattered a neighbor's car window over a petty argument. The time he shoved a classmate hard enough to leave stitches. The time they found a notebook Marcus had filled with angry scrawl. Pages of hatred toward women, teachers, authority. Linda didn't talk about those things. If she knew, she kept it private. And in the courtroom, she was still unshaken, still righteous, still delivering justice without flinching. But in Marcus, something was changing. College didn't calm him. It distanced him. He stopped calling home, grew more erratic. He'd vanish from campus for days, deleted his social media, started spending late nights in certain corners of the internet that were cruel, angry, and deeply disturbing. By the time he moved back home in early 2012, He wasn't the same boy Richmond once admired. And Linda, so busy upholding the law, may have missed what was festering inside her own home. What Linda didn't know, or perhaps refused to believe, was that her son had already been accused of something terrible just months earlier. The summer of 2012 was thick with heat and unease. Linda Harris had just finished presiding over a grueling series of gang-related cases, but she showed no signs of slowing down. At home, however, there was growing tension, something unspoken between her and Marcus, who had moved back in that spring. He rarely left the house, spent hours locked in his room. When he did speak, it was short, clipped. There was a weight to him, a heaviness that Linda couldn't quite place. But she gave him space. After all, he said he was just adjusting. Then came the conversation that changed everything. It was early August. Linda was walking through the courthouse when a fellow prosecutor pulled her aside. Not for work, for something personal. The prosecutor hesitated, then said it flatly. There's an open case from back in July. A 19-year-old girl filed a statement. Said she was sexually assaulted at a college party. Said the guy's name was Marcus Harris. Linda didn't speak. She couldn't. Her hands trembled, but her voice didn't crack. She simply nodded, turned away, and went back to her chambers. Behind that closed door, the world tilted. She waited until that night to bring it up. Sat across from Marcus at the kitchen table, like they used to when he was a boy and got caught sneaking in late. But this was different. She asked him directly. He didn't flinch. She's lying, he said. You know how they are. Linda blinked. How who are? Girls like that, he muttered. They sleep with you, then turn around and call it rape if you don't text back the next day. That moment stayed with her. It wasn't just the words. It was the coldness in his voice, the entitlement, the lack of remorse. She told him to leave the table. Then she sat there for hours, alone, staring into the dark. In public, she wore her mask, stoic, untouched by scandal. But in private, something was shifting. She stopped trusting Marcus. She started noticing the little things. His locked laptop, the phone he never left unattended, the bruises on his knuckles, the way he shut down any time she asked where he'd been. And the case, that case, it hadn't gone anywhere. The girl hadn't withdrawn her statement, but Marcus hadn't been charged either. It had quietly stalled. No hard evidence. No witnesses willing to talk. Linda knew how these things worked. She had seen predators walk free 1,000 times. And that's what began to eat at her. The question she didn't want to answer. Had her son become the kind of man she spent her life putting away? She couldn't talk to anyone about it. Couldn't go to the police. Not yet. So she did what she could. Quietly, carefully, she began keeping notes, tracking his moods, watching his comings and goings. She even checked his room when he was out. Found nothing at first, but it wasn't long before she came across a stash of printed-out forum threads. Angry rants about women, screeds about false accusations, and deserving what you take. There were names circled in red ink. One of them was the girl from the July case. She knew then, and yet still she didn't report him, because she wasn't just a judge. She was a mother, and mothers, no matter how strong, don't always move fast enough when the danger wears the face of their child. And then, she made a decision no mother ever imagines. She began quietly collecting evidence against her own son. September 13th started like any other Thursday. Linda arrived at court by 7:45 a.m., dressed in navy blue, her favorite brooch pinned near her collar. She handled 2 custody cases and a preliminary hearing before lunch. To the clerks and attorneys she passed in the hallway, she looked composed, focused, unshaken. But behind closed doors, she stayed late that night. No one knows exactly what she was reviewing, but her light was still on at nearly 9 p.m. A janitor later said she looked troubled but didn't speak when he passed by. She went home a little after 10 o'clock. Marcus arrived at the house shortly after. He hadn't been living there regularly in the weeks leading up to this night. But that night, he showed up unannounced. What happened between them during those final hours remains a mystery. But neighbors remember hearing voices, low at first, then raised. An argument, loud and sharp, pierced the quiet street. Glass breaking, something heavy hitting the floor. But no one called the police. People assume things, that it's just family, that it's none of their business. By 2 a.m., the house was silent again. The next morning, Linda's car was still in the driveway. The porch light was still on. A neighbor walking her dog noticed the front blinds looked crooked, like someone yanked them. But the door was locked. No sign of disturbance from the outside. Inside, however, was something else entirely. The living room was overturned. Pillows scattered. A lamp broken. In the hallway, fragments of shattered glass trailed toward the bedroom. And in that room, on the floor, was Linda. Her robe was torn. Her body bore the marks of a struggle no one heard. And what had been done to her, both before and after death, was unspeakable. A judge, a mother, silenced inside her own home. By mid-morning on September 14th, Linda Harris was officially considered missing. When she didn't show up for court, calls were made. Texts went unanswered. It wasn't just unusual, it was unheard of. 18 years on the bench, and not once had she been late, let alone absent. Her clerk drove by the house around 11 a.m., expecting to see her car gone, but it was still parked outside. Same position as the night before, same porch light on. When the courthouse contacted the local authorities for a welfare check, 2 officers arrived at Linda's residence just before noon. The house was still locked. No sign of forced entry, no broken windows, no alarm triggered. But when they stepped inside, it was immediately clear. Something terrible had happened. The living room was eerily still. A cushion lay split open, its stuffing pulled out like something had been torn apart mid-rage. A coffee mug, shattered into 4 jagged pieces, sat in a small pool of dried liquid near the sofa. The air inside the house was stale and quiet, except for the faint mechanical hum of the refrigerator. They found her in the bedroom. Linda's body lay on her side, curled inward, as if trying to shield herself. Her head was badly bruised, swelling across her temple and cheekbone. There were marks on her neck, deep and violent. But what unsettled the investigators most were the signs of something even more vicious: sexual assault, post-mortem violence. Her robe was pulled at an angle, one arm twisted beneath her back, and her face, once composed and sharp, was contorted in the final seconds of fear and agony. Within hours, the house was sealed off. Forensics arrived before sunset. They dusted for prints, collected fibers, photographed every inch of the scene. And as they moved from room to room, a single narrative began to form. A deeply disturbing one. There was no forced entry, no broken locks, no missing valuables. This wasn't a robbery. It wasn't a random attack. It was someone she knew, someone she trusted enough to let inside, someone who knew her house, knew her. The fingerprints came back quickly. They were all over the bedroom door, the closet handle, the nightstand drawer, mixed in with Linda's. They belonged to Marcus Harris.